Hello, everyone, and welcome to the event from waste to material and mind shifting. I'm here with Ken Alston, Zanka Diaz, and in our 45 minutes of speech, we'll talk about the importance to the transition from waste to material. Is a different approach in terms of how we consider waste. And we were discussing a few minutes ago with Ken and Susanka, and the term that Ken used is that waste are assets, and I love that because it's one of the most important points. But first of all, let me introduce the speakers. Ken Alston is one of the largest, the maximum expert in the world to talk about the transition between waste to material. And Ken, welcome on board, and please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Samuel. It's great to be here. Thank you for the invitation. You know, I always like talking about these issues that are important to all of us in the world today. As I know you and Sasanka both know, but your audience maybe does not. I've sort of had two halves to my career. The first half of my career, I worked inside a major global multinational corporation. And just because of who I am and the things I read and the things that interest me, I became very interested in environmental related issues. And so no matter what job I had inside this company, I always brought an environmental aspect to that work. Whether it was asked for or not, it was part of me. So that's who you get when I show up. And as a result of that, I ended up working in the corporate headquarters on sustainability. I'm talking about 30 years ago now, so a long time ago, when sustainability was first a topic that came into the world to discuss and think about. And along the way, I began to pick up some knowledge and some expertise. And then so that transitioned me into the second part of my career, where I've been consulting on these matters for the past 15 or 20 years. So basically, yes, I've been thinking about environmentally related things for a long time, and it's a passion of mine as well as a general interest. So I'm happy to be here.
Great, Ken. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. And Susanka is my partner in crime in MIM, my company, and at the same time is a very famous TV speaker in Sri Lanka. And for that reason, Susanka, introduce yourself, because he is also a very passionate guy, one of the most that I met in terms of sustainability and environmental protection.
Thank you, Sam. Yes, I think you put it in a nice way, partner in crime, absolutely. So I think it's great to be here, especially with Kim and also you, Samuel. It's a pleasure for me. So I'm a personal branding coach for waste management companies. I think, as Samuel said, I have been a TV news anchor for 15 years here in Sri Lanka. And then I thought I should take my experience global. And here I am.
Great, glad to hear that. Thank you, Sas, to be here. And I'm Samuele Barrilli, and I'm a marketer and also the founder of ME Marketing Interim Managers, the first international marketing company that is totally focused in helping the waste management companies to increase their positive impact in our environment and increase their revenues using marketing strategies. We decided to organize this event with Ken and with Zanka because there is an important point. It is the point of the transition of the mindset and the transition of the approach that is important to do about waste. Indeed, we are seeing that our world is facing one of the most important problems in terms of waste, because we are living one of the largest period of consumption of raw materials, and at the same time we are living one of the largest production of waste. Unfortunately, probably there is behind these problems there is a wrong approach about waste, because waste, as I told initially, and as we were discussing before the event with Ken, waste are assets that is possible to reuse, reintroduce in the market as a secondary raw material, as a material for other activities and other application. For that reason, I would ask to Ken when he arrived, because Ken is introduced us about the change of from waste to material, and I would ask to Ken when he arrived to this approach, this different approach that is able to change not only the quantity of waste produced, but also the quality of waste that are put in the recycling process.
Well, thanks, Sam. I remember back when I was in that first period of my career working in the multinational company. It was a privately owned company, even though it was a large multi-billion-dollar company, and it was owned by a family, the Johnson family. I worked for S.C. Johnson and Son, and the owner at the time, Sam Johnson, who sadly is no longer with us, he said one day, "I hate waste," and he was very, you could tell the passion when he said, "I hate waste." And so you asked, "Well, why? Why do you hate waste so much?" He said, "Well, it's something that I bought that I couldn't sell." Right? So it doesn't matter what your business is. If you're buying a material to make something, to sell something, to make a living, that's okay. But he hated the fact that he bought a raw material and he wasn't able to make added value in the products he was making. And he had something left over that he thought had no value. It was waste. So this is like the classical view of waste, that it has no value. And so that was one of the first things in my mind about, why waste is an issue, because it was not able to be moved into an added value asset class. And then later, when I was working with Bill McDonough, one of the co-authors of the book Cradle to Cradle, Bill always said, we have to eliminate the concept of waste, not only the physical waste, but even the idea of waste. And so this is the ideal situation, that we don't even have any waste at all, and maybe the word even doesn't exist anymore, because this is how nature works. There isn't any waste in nature. Nature has evolved a completely sustainable way of being, which runs on clean energy from the sun. It also keeps water clean, right? We don't have any pollution from normal, natural, nature's living events. And there is no waste, because everything becomes food for something else. Right now where I am, the leaves are falling off the trees. It's the autumn, and although you may worry that there are a lot of leaves in your garden, they're not really a waste, because you know that nature will take them back into the soil and cycle them in a natural, safe way. And so if we take nature as our model and our mentor, then how do we get to approach, even if we can't be perfect, how do we even begin to approach and be better at managing our material flows, so that we eliminate, or effectively eliminate, as much as we can, the whole idea of waste?
Great. Thanks, Ken, because that's very important. You touched several points that are very important. And first of all, the approach of the nature, because nature explains us how our life can go ahead, and how we can manage also the situation that we are living nowadays. Because as you mentioned, the leaves from the trees and that are reintroduced in the soil thanks to natural process, and that is because the leaves in autumn are not waste, but are asset for the soil. And that's
Exactly.
the most important point. In terms of marketing, that's an important approach because the change from waste to material help a different consideration about what you have and the value that you have in your hands when you are using or considering something that you don't use as a waste, because it's as we mentioned, is an asset that is possible to use to resell for a different approach. And that's something that is need to become a part of the communication for waste companies, because waste companies still continue to collect waste, but the most important point is to reintroduce to treat and to reintroduce this waste as a material in the process of production, because we are facing in this period, in this 2021, the world is facing some interesting shortages in some raw materials, shortages that probably was possible to avoid thanks to a right treatment process and right consideration of material of waste as a material, because that's one of the most important point. It is that the approach that we try to move forward in our event today. In terms of branding, Saz, I will ask you. This Ken mentioned the importance of to being close to the nature, because nature solves the problem, and which is the point of view that you can offer in terms of branding for waste management companies, because there is an interesting approach in that.
Absolutely, Sam. I think we came to a great point, right? We took this conversation into a wonderful direction. So I believe that it's the lack of awareness that people have. People need to think more than nature. If we don't protect this planet, where else are we going to live? Right? There is no planet B. So this is the initial factor that we have to take to the people in terms of messaging or communicating, as you said. So, like Ken said, I believe thinking of waste as an asset. So we can call it asset management. So that's a proper term, I believe. And when I really thought of this, and when Ken came up with this term saying asset, I thought anyone who sees a landfill should look at it as a pile of gold or a chunk of gold, right? Because you can just turn it into gold. It is just a matter of thinking, changing the mindset. So that's what we are discussing here today. So in terms of branding, I believe the initial point, the first step that we have to take is to raise awareness or give value about the invaluable aspect of protecting the nature. Because if we don't do that, it's going to be curtains and game over for all of us. That's my take.
If I could add to that, I think.
Yes, Ken.
Why are we here? We're talking about this because we want to raise awareness. It's part of the attitude you were just mentioning. And
exactly.
If we don't change attitudes first, then behavior doesn't follow, right? You can't change behavior without changing attitudes first. So that's the order of things. That's why we're talking about some raising awareness to change attitudes to waste, and then we can go to Sanga's point and say, well, why are we focusing on waste? Well, it's because it's part of the unsustainability problem. That's what you were saying there. You were saying, right, we have a problem on Earth about how we continue on if we continue on in the way we are today. So it's part of the sustainability issue, or let's look at it the way it really is, the unsustainability issue. And so we have to keep challenging, why are we unsustainable? And you can see from my gray hair that I've been thinking about this for a long time, and it's now more than 34 years since we started talking about sustainability. And you could argue that today we're less sustainable than we were when we first started talking about it. Even though we've tried very hard, many people have spent money, spent time, spent energy trying to solve this big global issue, and yet we're worse now than we were before. So clearly we've
Yeah.
been missing something, right? There's something wrong in our approach if after 34 years we haven't really made, not only not made a dent in the problem, it's actually got worse. So this is why it's still so important, because it's part of this bigger issue. And I think, we have to partly keep asking why is this? Why is this? Why is this? And, this is when you end up saying, well, waste is part of the problem. And so this is why it's so important, because it fits this bigger context, the bigger problem. And you have to start tackling it somewhere. You at some point, you've got to get behavioral change after we've got the attitude change.
Absolutely.
Yeah, indeed. Starting from your point that I agree too much, Ken, and we need to change the attitudes. And marketing is demonstrated. It is one of the most important tools to help the change of attitudes in the helping working in the human behavior, because it's something that these attitudes are something that we created. Because something that we created, because you mentioned that we are talking about sustainability and about 35 years, and that's one of the very important points, because if we watch behind, people probably was not so involved in sustainability as could be nowadays. But at the same time, if I think about the stories that my grandmother told me, I remember very well that they approach to the life in a sustainable mode, because if I think only about the clothes, if I think about the leftover of the foods and about everything, they recycle everything in their families inside, and what changed is what changed their attitude is something that influenced the was influenced by the not consumism, but the research to exit from a difficult period that move people to reuse everything inside their families. And but that was so as a problem, but it was not the real problem. It was the solution that families adopted to go ahead in that period, in their periods. And nowadays, what is possible to do is to reintroduce this approach in the communities, in the municipalities, because it's something that become very helpful, not only for the community, but also for the nature, the environment, and everything. And to do that, is it important that waste companies start to talk about the importance to approach considering waste as a material that is possible to use in small communities, in cities, and to cut the dispersion of waste, because that's the problem that is directly connected, because people to avoid the management of their waste, prefer to abandon the waste in landfills or in lands, and that's one of the common problems. And for that reason, the most important point is in terms of marketing is to educate and to use marketing, and waste management companies could use marketing as an educational system to teach citizens about the importance of the asset that they are that they would consider as a waste. And that's one of the most important point. And for that reason, you mentioned the idea of some or the project of some small communities where it's possible to exchange the waste, the assets, and that's something that could become very helpful in our reality.
Right. I think I look at what I call intervention points. Where can we intervene in the current system and make changes? If the idea is that somewhere we have to make changes to make things more sustainable, who's going to do it is one question. And I think it's probably the most important question. In this conversation, we're talking about people who are in the waste management industry. That's one of the actors. It's one of the groups of people who can make some changes. But other people in other sectors and other parts of the whole business cycle can also make changes, right? So there's a who first, and then there's the what are we going to do? And I think this change in thinking to make something go to the different side of the balance sheet makes it an economic question. And businesses are in business in part to make money. This is part of what they do. This is the economic engine that drives the global economy, right? There's a local economy, there's a regional economy, there's a national economy, there's a global economy, and they're all interconnected. But in the end, they all end up being local because the TV screen I can see behind you and the headphones you're wearing, they are in your city. They're not in my city, right?
Yeah.
And so when they are no longer usable, what happens to them next is in your city. So it's a local question. So the management of those assets, let's now call them assets and not waste, because when we change the terminology, just by changing our language, now we think about something that has value. Assets have value. Waste is something we can just throw away and forget or ignore or, I don't know, not even think about. So change our language, think about something that has value, and then where can we intervene in the various parts of the cycle in order to recapture the value that is intrinsically there? Because what we've done, we've taken materials from the earth, and then we've made products from them, we've distributed them, we've sold them. Now we're using them all over the world. And so they're now dispersed into millions of cities and millions of villages, wherever you live, right? They're in our homes. And part of the problem is we have to reconcentrate the materials so that we have enough in our hands or in a factory somewhere where we can reutilize them. Because when they're dispersed in every house, it's hard to have enough of any one material to have enough value. So there's a question of how do we reconcentrate and get enough materials back? Well, that's what the waste management companies do, right? They collect stuff.
Yeah.
And so they can be part of instead of just collecting it to try and see what there is and hope to make something from it, let's make it a more determinative outcome that we're going to look for assets and we're going to, revalue these assets in some way. So it is a mind shift. So change your language, change how you look at it. And then how do we do it? Then that becomes the next question. And, there are 4 or 5 new circular business models, because underlying all that we're talking about is the idea that the issue of unsustainability and of waste, all the things you talked about before, these things are symptoms of this other problem that's hidden away. And the problem that's hidden that most people never talk about is the fact that the way we've created the economy is linear. We take things, we make things, we use them, we throw them away. Nature runs in cycles. And that's how it's more sustainable, because it operates in a different way. So how do we begin to transition and make changes to go from linear to circular? So all of these things come together, but we don't forget sustainability, because I can think of circular things that are unsustainable as well as linear things that are unsustainable. So it is quite complicated. And when we add sustainability back in, guess what? We get economics, we get environment, and we get social equity. So we have these different dimensions that we can have on our balance sheet to think about. But changing it to assets makes you think about the economics, and that's what drives business. So how do we make an economic value proposition that you can then market internally in the company and externally as needed?
Yes, and totally agree with you, because what is important is to change the vision and about the how we are considering the process, because as you mentioned, nowadays is a linear process: purchase, use, and waste. That is the three maximum general steps. But as you mentioned, nature is circular, and for that reason, circularity is the key. And how to create circularity is something that could be in the approach that waste managers could use in their process, and also marketing for waste management companies and for waste manager work could work in that, because only creating circularity is it possible to not solve the problem, but to go in the direction to solve the problem, because to solve the problem we need time. And but
So where are you intervening? If I go back to my idea of intervention points, where is the waste management industry intervening? They're intervening right now only at the end.
in the end,
When
yes.
something's going to be thrown away, you're saying, "Oh my goodness, this thing's about to be thrown away. I'm going to try and catch it." And now I've caught it.
Yeah.
It's a whole mess of different things. There's contamination, there's organics, there's metals, there's everything, there's
Yeah.
plastic. And how am I going to make some value from it? Well, you're intervening in the wrong place, right? Where else can
Yes.
we intervene at other places so that we can not have this mixture that is so difficult to separate? So start
Ye-
thinking about back to the materials again and the assets. Where can I get the higher value asset that I can then recover? And some of it will be at the end, and some of it will be a different point. Um, there are 4 or 5 new circular business models. The first one is circular supplies. So that's just the idea that things have to circulate. And where are we going to get them from? Instead of going back to the ground to dig out more metals or more oil or whatever our starting materials are, even agriculture, there's not that much productive land on the earth that we can make everything from bio-based materials. It's just impossible. So we have to look at the whole mix of things. But how are we going to use things that have already been used before more often than going back and getting new things from the ground again? So that's circular supplies. The waste management industry, excuse me, is very involved in the second one, which is resource recovery.
Yes.
Where are we going to get things back, and how are we going to get them back? How are we going to concentrate them? How are we going to make them valuable again? That's the whole resource recovery, which again has to be part of the circular solution. And then there's the whole question of how long things last. You talked about things in the past. We have a tendency to throw things away and buy a new one. Why can't I buy a toaster for my kitchen, which if something goes wrong with it, I can repair it.
Yes.
I don't have to buy all of it again. Only one part of it stopped working, but it's not been designed today to be repaired. It's been designed to be thrown away, and please buy another one, right? So how do we change and get repair and remanufacture and reconcentration? How do we get all of these things back into the system again? And then there's the sharing economy. We don't have to own everything. I don't have to own a lawnmower if my neighbor has one. We could agree to share one, or you could have a group of people who share one. We can rent things, and we can have a service instead of a product. There are all sorts of different business models now that people are experimenting with. And the one that I've been experimenting with some success, is the idea of having local city-based online platforms that connect businesses, so that I can say, "Hey, Sam, I'm here. I make product X. And as part of my business, I have something. I have I have this left over, and I don't know what to do with it. Do you know anybody who could use this, whatever it is,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
But you've no idea that I have this left over. Sasank is in his city. He has no idea what's left over 2 streets away from where he's sitting right now. There's somebody with something that has some value that they're not using. There's an unused or an underutilized asset, but you don't know about it. You don't know how you could access it. So we need ways to connect. And so what I've been working on is the idea of these online platforms that can be city-based, so they're very local. And you can say, hey, I've got this. Anybody want to buy it? It's $10. Or whatever it is, it's $1 million, whatever you think the value of whatever it is. It could be something small, it could be something large. Or it could be something you're saying, the example I use all the time is like a 3D printer, right? I'm an entrepreneur. I've just invented some new thing, and I want to make a rapid prototype to test out my ideas to see if my little new product. I've invented the pen, right? So I want to see if it works. I have to make the first prototype. So these days we can use laser, 3D printers to print
Yes.
components. But so what does that mean? Do I have to go out and buy a 3D printer? Well, no, there are probably 10 in my city, but I have no idea where they are. And they're probably not being used 24 hours a day. If only I knew where they were, I could say, hey, can I borrow your 3D printer for 2 hours to print my new pen? Oh, yeah, you can do that for $100. Well, there you are. Now I've got a new value-added business from somebody else using the 3D printer that I have, or somebody owns. And this is the idea of sharing something that already exists instead of going out and buying another one. We don't need 10 more of them in my city. There are enough already. Probably same in your city, but you have no idea
Yes.
where they are, either a useful product or a waste. And so the idea of these platforms is to just have a way to make awareness. Right? We're in 3 different cities and we're aware of each other because of what? A platform. We connected first on LinkedIn or Facebook or somewhere, right? We got connected because of platforms. So why can't we do the same with materials? So that's my interest.
Yeah, I completely agree with you because it's something that is very, very important and also it seems something more than easy nowadays because as you mentioned, we are connected thanks to platforms and we are always connected with platforms. And why don't use platforms to create this circularity in our communities, because we don't need to purchase a 3D printer to print one sample. We need to use the 3D printer for the sample, but that's something that is possible to create only thanks to the mind shifting that we are mentioning, because that's the base. Because also, as you mentioned, the waste management companies nowadays are working at the end of the process or in a small part of the process, are not what is important also for waste managers is to operate in all the steps of the process, from the production to the sales, arriving to the end of life of the product. Because as you mentioned, the product nowadays are not projected for being repaired, but are projected to be thrown out, because that's the approach that had been created in the year.
But these things are changing because of the attitude change, Sam. What's happening in Holland, for example. You see cities now having repair cafes, a place where you can go. If I have a toaster, I can take my toaster to the repair cafe. I can get a nice cup of coffee and talk with my new friends in the cafe, while somebody who knows how to repair a toaster has all the tools and the things they need to do it. And so now I can take my toaster back home again, I have a working toaster. I had a nice cup of coffee and a social chat with people. So now we're doing a social good thing as well as an economically good thing. And we took a little pressure off the environment because I don't have to buy a new toaster.
Yeah.
So again, new mechanisms will come to play, new platforms, new places.
Yeah, we have to play another approach to not only to the waste but approach to life, because we have to change our habits to purchase and waste the things, because it's not working. Okay, I purchase another one, as you mentioned, the earphones or the TV and the things. Usually, what happens when they stop their functions, you search a new solution and going in the new shopping center to purchase a new one. And
or on a platform, you buy one on a platform.
On a platform, exactly, on platforms that are available. And that's the common approach that is due to consider the things as a waste.
Look at another example. Let me give you another example. I was introduced to a company we've just had the COP meetings on energy and in Glasgow in Scotland. There is a small private brewery in Scotland, again, a family-owned brewery, and they decided to intervene in their waste within the city of Glasgow. If you're making beer, what do you need? You normally need some grains, right? Your grains, and then you have your some sugar, and you have water, and you have yeast, right, to brew.
Yes.
Well, they decided that they would try to take stale bread from the bakeries. What is bread made from? It's made from a grain. So instead of having to go to a farmer and buy new grain that's grown every year, I wonder if I can make a beer out of stale bread. Because what was the bakery going to do? They were going to throw it away. It was going to be part of the materials that the waste management company came and picked up. But instead of just picking it up and saying this is a waste, they took it to be a raw material that has value, and they made a beer, a very tasty beer that actually won awards. So it's just that example isn't going to change the world. It's not going to make the world sustainable, but it's one little intervention that was different. So how many of these millions of little interventions can we imagine making?
Sam, I think what Ken said, right? I agree with what you said, Ken. I saw a similar example in a video that was in New Zealand, where they use bread to brew beer, as you said. So wonderful examples. And I think now we set the platform. I think you and Sam set the platform, Ken, for me to ask this question, right? What I thought was we need to start from the smallest unit in the society, which is the family. So with your experience, global experience, Ken, how can we start to change this mindset? Maybe repairing. If something is broken, you repair it. You don't buy it. Because this is part of the buying behavior of people as well. It's a habit transformation, as we discussed. So everything has to change. But where can we start from? Any suggestions, Ken?
Well, this is why I said part of the question that we have to start with is who is going to make these changes. We have attitudes. We're trying to change attitudes, and then we're trying to change behaviors next. And so your question is a good one. It's okay. Who's going to change their attitude? We can change it at the consumer level, at the individual or the family level, like you said, because if individuals change their buying behavior, or suddenly they say to a company that's making something, hey, what do you do with your waste? What do I do with the waste? Why do I have waste? Because I used your product. You've given, Mr. Manufacturer, you've given me a problem in my home and my family, because now I have waste that I've got to deal with. And I only want to buy in the future from companies that are going to take this burden of waste management off of me and my home and my family. So what are you doing about it? So the individuals can put some pressure back up the supply chain to the manufacturers and say, and ask questions, right? If you're on social media, and most of these companies are, Send them a note on Twitter or whatever connection you have in social media, and ask, what are you doing about waste? And they will listen. This is what companies have to do. They have to listen to their end buyer, right? If you don't listen to your buyer, they'll switch to somebody who gives them a better answer. So that's one way you can do it, from the consumer back up the chain. But I think that's slow, and it's difficult to reach everybody one person at a time. But it's part of what we can do. It's definitely part of a strategy, can be to communicate to people, to say, hey, start taking action. I would say that when I speak at universities to students, the question I'm most often asked is, okay, Ken, I get it. I hear what you're saying. I understand the concept, but what can I do? This is the problem. It's people don't know what steps they can take. And I think a simple one for consumers is just put pressure on the people you buy from. Next time you buy a jacket or a shirt or whatever you're buying, think about who you're buying it from. Think about asking them questions about, are you dealing with some of these issues? And if they don't give you a good answer, find somebody who gives you a better answer. So that's the way to deal with the consumer. But the strategy changes, the marketing tactics change a little bit depending on where you are in that whole cycle of buying and purchasing and making and selling and distributing. All the different jobs. It's a slightly different angle of the same topic.
You're touching an interesting point, Ken. Thanks for that, because it's very important to have to select the right approach in these terms, because if you only think about the packagings that are used for all the clothes, all the things, all the clothes, or forever, for each good that you purchase, there are a lot of packagings that are wasted, that arrive at your home and are wasted because there is paper, there are plastics, there are a lot of different things that are used to protect. But what no one indicate is how to treat in the proper way also this part of the goods that you are purchasing. And for that reason, it's very important to in terms of marketing, to create the right communication about what the product is, because these components are these packaging parts are part of the product, because when the product arrive at your home is completed by all these parts, and that usually produce the largest part of waste, because in most cases when you are purchasing as an example a new laptop, you use the laptop for approximately 1 year, 2 years, I don't know, but approximately is 1 year, and but the packaging is a waste that you have immediately, and is the most important in the first moment, and no one think about how to create the right process, start from the beginning, because when you purchase the good, you should receive a list of the waste that you are receiving in your
and what
home,
to do with it. Yes,
and what to do. And that's because
I think you probably find this from your reporting days, that there's a risk in all of this marketing, that we get into this area of greenwashing, right, where people are then exaggerating the benefit that they're providing. And I think when any company is moving into working with you and talking about the marketing messages around this type of topic, be very, very careful, right, and be very humble. It would be really easy for Sasanka, with his training and his media training and his past experience, to expose a company for hyping what they're doing. Oh, I'm changing the world because I changed a paperclip, right? No, you didn't change it. Be humble, be honest, and say, look, I'm making this tiny little change. It's only one small change, but it's an important step in the right direction. So I think your communications and your marketing around these topics has to be very carefully done.
I think, Sam, there is a there is an aspect or an angle in terms of personal branding of what
Yeah.
Ken said, right? I believe it's the authenticity. You need to tell the truth.
Yeah.
It's
I
part of your
completely agree
content,
with you.
and it's the core. Isn't it?
Yeah.
So
Otherwise, Frank
that's
will
what
just, he'll find
motivates.
you out and he'll expose you, and he'll be the next investigative reporter that just says, look, this guy just hyping this. It's not changed the world
Yes.
at all. So to be
Exactly.
honest and humble, and as you say, just appropriate for what you're doing, but show that you're doing something, the right thing.
Yeah, exactly. And then there is a lack of motivation, isn't it, Sam? So I think marketing, we can use marketing to motivate society, the people.
Yes.
I
Yes.
mean,
We have the approach that is important to use is from change to create this mind shifting is to educate people to and to educate waste manager about the importance of the value that is directly connected with waste, because they are, as Ken told, are assets that people collect in their houses, because when you receive coming back on the laptop, you receive different assets that are the laptop, the box, the paper box, and the plastic inside, and are three different type of assets that you can use, you can sell for the creation of other assets for other people, because that is
Well, and look at that as decided another way, Sam, as well, which is time. Okay, so we're all using laptops, right? We're here virtually in this event, and you probably own your laptop. Sazanka owns his laptop. I own my laptop. We own them. They're made of plastic and metals and all sorts of complicated things. And that's great because they have a utility, right? We are using them to do something we want to
yes.
do, which is to communicate with each other and with the people in the webinar with us. But did you really want to own plastic and metal and this and that and whatever's in there? You don't really want to own it. You
No.
want the service of a laptop. You don't want the laptop itself. So this is another part of the mind shift is, why did we all buy our laptops? Why can't we just say, I'm prepared to pay, I don't know, let's pick a number, $50 a month
Yeah.
to have the use of laptop services, and I want the fastest, best, highest graphics, whatever you want from your laptop, and I'm prepared to pay $50 a month. You might only be prepared to pay 40, somebody else might be prepared to pay 70, whatever the number is, doesn't matter. But the idea is, I don't own the laptop. Why doesn't Dell or IBM or whoever makes them, why don't they own it? And then when I want to change it, you said it might only last 1 year before I want an upgrade. Well, I don't own it. I just say,
Sam,
hello, Mr. Manufacturer. I want the new one you just came out with. Take my old one back, please. And if they have to
Yes.
get the old one back, they might think a little bit more about what they make it from, so that they can take the pieces of the old one and reuse them. Right now, they don't care because
Yes.
it's my problem now. I own it. You own it. Sazanko owns it. Right. So
Yeah.
this is another mindset change. Change the business model behind the product
Ex-
and make it a service.
exactly.
Sam,
That's
I recall the first discussion we had with Ken, right? He
yeah.
just raised the eyebrows, and it really did again. It raised my
Yes.
eyebrows again right now.
Good. Yes, yes, because that's what can what you told is something that is great, because it's a different business model that is needed to change to create this mind shifting. And
Yeah.
and also in you mentioned the laptop, because we were talking about laptops, and I thinking about what Apple does with the old iPhones, because they collect also the old iPhones. Probably, I don't know, maybe they reuse something, or to they treat the raw materials inside, but something that is very important, because if the manufacturer start with this different approach, every one of us, every one of us has the possibility to support in a different way the sustainability and to approach and to work having this mind shifting. That is something very important. And
So let's come back to the beginning where we started our discussion and put it in the waste management, or what we rather say materials management or asset management.
Yeah.
Right now, you're managing whatever that manufacturer leaves you, right? We need an intervention at the design stage with the manufacturer to say, you need to make this differently and you need to get it back. And so that the management of the materials changes. There's an example in Holland of a manufacturer of blue jeans, mud jeans, that's experimenting with a different business model. They don't sell you blue jeans. They lease them to you, right? You rent them. And when they're worn out and you don't want to use them anymore, they've sent you a return package to send them back to them. And they're working on ways in which they can reutilize the materials that they used to make the blue jeans that you wore for a year or however long you wore them. So these models change the dynamics. And so
Yes.
there's a lot of scope for innovation. There's a lot of scope for these new connections to be made. But this is another intervention point. Design it differently at the beginning, and it makes it easier at the end for the materials management companies to do something more useful with it. Right now, when it's made for the linear flow, there's not a lot you can do. So we have to attack it everywhere.
Yes, that's another important point, because the change of the designer is something. The change of the design is something that is not only important. It's something that change the life and create circularity in the process. Because you mentioned the blue jeans, and when you were telling about the blue jeans, I was thinking about a company that I know that in Italy products rent shirts for business guys, and it's something that work very well, because when you decide to finish the rent, they are able to use the same shirts for other guys, and something that creates circularity. And
that's what we're doing with these platforms. The platforms are not just to say, hey, I've got a waste that I want to sell you. But that's one type of transaction, is a sale which moves the asset from me to you. The other is a lease. So I have an asset, you can use it for a week, 10 days, a year. I get it back again, and then Zanka can use it for a week or 10 days or a year, whatever.
Yes.
So there's leases built into these platforms as well as sales to allow for these different types of transactions, because there are some things you don't want to keep for a long time.
Yes.
You may just want to dig a hole, and so you need the use of a digging equipment for 2 days. So you lease it, you don't buy it. So how many more things like this can companies have? Imagine just now, so many people like us, we're all working out of our homes. How many buildings are there that aren't fully utilized? What else could we do if we had all this space that's now not being used? If that was on a platform and said, hey, I've got this space that you can do something with, or anything. It can be a space, it can be a building, it can be a product, it can be a service.
Yeah, it's
we
something.
Just have to connect people better.
Exactly. It's something that work very well nowadays, thanks to the platform, thanks to the possibility to be very connected. I'm thinking about the possibility of the car sharing, short sharing that are available in some cities, the scooters sharing that are available in some cities, because it's something that nowadays is very diffused. Because if you arrive as an example, if you arrive in Milan, if you arrive in Rome, if you arrive in Paris or in Lisbon too, there is in the year logged in an app, you can find the vehicle that you are searching to move to arrive in another place, but you don't need to purchase it. You don't need to rent it directly. You have the possibility to sharing is something that is starting to be very, very diffused and very
Right. So back
important.
to attitudes and behaviors again, right?
Exactly.
Because of the pandemic, attitudes have changed and behaviors have changed. More people are, instead of going to a restaurant, they use Uber Eats or some local delivery company using an app that
Yeah.
says, I'd like to buy my next meal of whatever it is from this restaurant. Please pick it up and deliver it to me. So you're using a platform to get a service to deliver something to you, an asset, which is the food. You can do that for cars. You can do it for food. You can do it Airbnb, right? You can rent a place for a day, a
Yes.
week. We're getting used to this idea of platforms and renting because of all of these other things, including the pandemic, forcing more change on more people, the availability of
Yes.
smartphones. So the platforms is definitely the way to go. And so,
Yeah.
I can't wait to talk to you both and anybody else who wants to about how we start doing this, because that's where we have to go next, right? We're doing the attitude change today. Now we need the behavior change.
Yes.
Sam, I think
And
we should talk about these reselling platforms. There is something called reselling platforms.
Exactly. Yeah.
Some of the
yes.
business model. If you could elaborate on that for us, please.
Well, where I'm starting right now is business to business, because I think um, there are a lot of in every city. There's probably a chamber of commerce or something very similar, where you already have groups of businesses that are somewhat connected through the chamber, and you have local meetings and you talk about things, and you have a discussion about your local economy, right, in your chamber, in your local chamber. So the idea to make this spread quickly is to have a platform for a local chamber, or maybe for a city if you've got a very aware mayor of your city. It could be made available as a service by the mayor, or it could be a service to members by the Chamber of Commerce. And so you connect a lot of people very quickly. If I have to go to you, Suzanne, go one person, and then have to go to Sam, and then have to go to somebody else, and if I have to do it one person at a time, one business at a time, it takes too long. So to find these connection points or nodes, but also have other nodes, right? So that we get to the mayor, or we get to the chamber, or whatever a good local group is. It could be, I don't know, a group in the construction industry, or it could be a group in waste management industry, but somebody that has connections to 100 or more other companies, so we can build quickly these networks. Because it's like the telephone. If I'm the only person that owns a cell phone, it's got no value. When
Clear.
when Sam and I both have a cell phone, now we have some value. Now when we have three, we have even more value. So we've got to get many people into the network as quickly as possible to make the value equation work. So that's why I'm going first for business to business, and directly to these groups that already have groups. Does that make sense?
Yes, that's something amazing, because also business to business create value, but exchange between different the different leftovers of the different production, putting in connection people in through this network, because that's the you are touching an important point with that, Ken. That is the importance of the networking, because it's very
And we want to do
important
it
to,
locally. We want to do it locally because we want to minimize the distance things have to travel,
yeah,
right? Because when
because
we
this is
move things from one place to another, we use more energy again. So the more
exactly.
we can do things locally, the better. Some things will have to go probably to the next city. Right? There may not be
Yes.
something in your city, Sam. You may have to go to the next one that's nearby, that's 50 kilometers away. I don't know what, but we build the connections out.
Yeah, but the is very important, because the network create help the sustainability, and at the same time help the reduction uh, the reduction of consumption of goods and raw materials and everything, increasing and creating also economy, because if there are in my city, as an example, there is the one of the highest production of iron leftovers. Probably, if someone start with the production of goods based on iron, is more easy for him to create a very a strong company than in another country where there is where in another city where you have to import the raw materials for the production. That's help also not only the sustainability, help the scalability of the business, help the growth of the business, and help the marginality of the business. Is also part of the marketing that, because it's very important, and this mind shifting create economy, and that's something that is we are trying to we are touching in our discussion here, because we started talking.
We want to have more local business and more people employed. Part of the value for the city is that these movements within the city will create new employment opportunities.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Create employment companies. We create business, and that's thanks to the change of the mindset between waste to material. Is everything can start from this, and for that reason, it's very important that waste managers, companies, and everyone start to change his approach in starting considering the waste as assets, as material to use for other production, because that's the only way to increase the employment, increase the number of employers in the city, to increase the number of companies, to create sustainability, to solve the shortages of raw materials, to increase the quality of production, because you are purchasing leftovers from a company that is 2 streets over you, and is something that is more easy to control at the same time, because and that is the power of this mind shifting.
Yeah, and so there are two basic strategies we're employing here. One is to increase the positive benefits, increase the beneficial outcomes, and the other is to reduce the negative or unintended consequences. There are so many unintended negative consequences of how we do what we do. So let's find all of these things that add to the negative and reduce them and eliminate them, and that includes waste, where we started, but also now try to increase all of the things we can do that are positive and beneficial. So reduce the bad and increase the good is basically what we're trying to do.
Yes, that is.
Exactly. So I think, Sam, finally, right? I just want to, this is an experience of mine. So we use resources. I think we have discussed about this before as well. We use resources, but after the usage, we don't know what to do. I have a similar example during my childhood. So when there is a cleanup happening at home, right? You have plastics, various items, right? So sometimes my parents ask, "Do you need this?" You don't know what to do with it. Thereafter, even they don't know. So this is, I think it's the pain point. It's the real pain point, as how I see it.
I completely agree with you, because it's something that happen every single day in our houses, and it's something that starts from our houses. For it's something that we start to manage in our homes. That's very important. You are touching an important point, Saz, because we create habits starting from the environment where we spend the largest part of our time, home, offices, and work, and that's part of the human behavior, because we have to, for that reason, marketing is very helpful in that, because we start to introduce these new habits in people, in entire common affairs, common situation, common movement atoms. Because when you exit from a room in your apartment and you turn off the light, you are starting to change something, because you don't forgot the light to turn it on. And that's one of the point. And you repeat this because repetition is something that helps the change of the habits and the attitudes. And that's the point. For that reason, I will close this event. First of all, thanks, giving my thanks to Ken, because every time you open us something new in our minds, and that's something amazing. Thanks a lot, Ken. I would like to say thank you to Sasanka for his support and his intervention and everything here. And I will say thank you to our listeners and watchers, because in 1 hour, over 1 hour, we are talking about 1 hour and 5 minutes. We touched several points about this important topic, that is the mind shifting from waste to material. Can explain it, how it's important to start to consider waste as assets, and with Sasanka from the side of brand, and with me from the side of marketing, we talked about the importance to start educating people to change their attitudes and habits, also in their homes, in their day-by-day actions. And we touched several points. And thanks a lot for your time, and see you very soon. Thanks, Ken. Thanks, Saz.
Thank you. And
Thank
if
you,
anybody
Sam.
wants to connect on LinkedIn, they're very welcome. And I look forward to our continuing conversations. Thanks to you both.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Ken, for sharing your valuable insights and enlightening the audience.
Okay, you're welcome.
As you always do.
Thanks a lot, guys. Thanks all. Thanks our followers, our watchers, and feel free to contact us, and have a nice rest of the day. Thank you, guys. Thanks a lot. See you soon.
Ciao, Sam.
Bye bye.
See you. Good night.